Hello and welcome to this British Council webinar on how to apply to UK universities. This is the second in a series of webinars we've been giving. The last one was why apply to UK universities, and that's available on our website. My name is George Wilson and I run our university preparation section here at the British Council. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. For now, though, let's move straight into a recap of the very good reasons why we should apply to the UK. Next slide, please. So there are several reasons why the UK is one of the world's premium study destinations. First of all, you're guaranteed a warm welcome. The UK is a highly multicultural society, and the higher education sector is a good example of that. In 2017-18, there were 143,000 EU students studying in the UK, and that's only a fraction of the wider international student body, which numbered 485,000 international students. What's more, a quarter of the UK's teaching staff come from different countries, which helps really create a good exchange of ideas, and that in turn feeds into the quality of our teaching. So the UK is world renowned for the quality of its universities. There are 28 of the top 200 universities in the world are in the UK. Some of them you can probably name, Cambridge, Oxford, but there are many, many more world-beating universities that I would strongly encourage you to look into. The student satisfaction rates in the UK are excellent. 90% of international students feel that it was a beneficial choice for them to go to the UK and that it helped them, and many of them feel it helped them in their careers later on. Speaking of careers, surveys show that the UK produces some of the most employable graduates in the world. And you can be sure that by investing in a UK education, you're really getting the best career prospects on the job market, whether it be in the UK or abroad. But more than that, university is a social event in the UK. People don't tend to live at home. They tend to go to live in their universities. That might be in a hall of residence, it might be in a shared flat, or it might be in a private home with other students. Now, this creates a unique kind of blend of people, all tasting their independence for the first time. The result is that you have a vibrant social life involving societies, associations, in other words, such as French societies, cocktail societies, chess societies, and so on. But you also have sports clubs, theatre groups, all sorts that enable people to really get the most out of their university experience. Next slide, please. The result of all that is that the UK really attracts a huge number of people from France. In 2019, there were 5,575 applicants to UK universities, and we're very hopeful that that will continue with people like you. France was the country that sent the most students to the UK in the EU. Next slide, please. Now, after this quick resume of the reasons to study in the UK, which you can find more information about on our previous webinar, let's look at just some of the practical information about studying in the UK in a post-Brexit situation. The UK university system is still wide open to international students, and yes, the rules have changed a little, but not dramatically. So, if you begin your studies after the 31st of July 2021, you will now be paying international student fees. Now, these fees can vary between £11,000 and £30,000 per year. However, each university fixes the fee and it varies according to the subject. So if you're studying a subject that costs more for the university, then it will be more expensive than if you're studying one which is cheaper for the university. If you're a UK citizen and you begin your course in the next few years, you won't have to pay these fees. You'll pay home student fees, which are cheaper. If you are living in the UK already, you won't have to pay these fees. So one way around this slight increase in fees is to explore the different scholarships and bursaries which universities offer at the moment to help you make the right choices and help you with the finance necessary to carry those through. Towards the end of this presentation, I'll share with you some useful links where you can have a look at different bursary schemes and so on. Next slide, please. You'll also need, of course, now to have a visa. If you arrive after the 1st of January 2021 and your course lasts for more than 6 months, you'll need a visa. Now that visa will be delivered for the duration of your course. It will cost £348 and all you'll need is a valid travel document and of course an offer from a university. In fact, it will be so easy you'll be able to use a smartphone app to complete the process. You'll need, in addition to your visa, to pay the equivalent of a French mutuelle, so immigration health surcharge. That will be £470 at the moment per year. That charge will give you access to our NHS, our National Health Service, and will enable you to make sure that you're well cared for if ever you fall ill. Once you've got your offers, and we'll talk about that later on, you can apply for your visa. Applications open on the 5th of October, but you can only apply up to 6 months before the beginning of the course. Now you might wonder what will happen at the end of your course. Luckily, there's a new scheme called the graduate route, and this will give you the opportunity to work in the UK for 2 years post your studies, post-studies. So once you finish, you'll be able to stay for 2 years and gain valuable experience in the UK and give back to the UK industries that you've been learning from. There's lots of information about all this on various websites, but notably the new immigration system is explained on the British government's webpage and on our StudyUK moving to the UK pages. Those links are on the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please. Now, that was the detailed information about why and changes to the system, but the application process hasn't changed. So let's look in detail now at the real subject of our webinar today, how to apply to the UK. Now, all the applications for UK universities go via a website and an organisation known as UCAS. This is a non-profit organisation, which means that they're just there to help you. They have no interest in doing anything but helping you make the right choices for you. It's a really simple process, and we're going to look a little at the stages of that today. It's also possible to contact UCAS if you have any questions. They're very accessible, and I'll give you their phone number a little later on. If you have any questions at any point, please do feel free to write in the chat, and we'll get back to you at the end. Next slide, please. So, UCAS will help you gain access to one of the 370 universities and colleges in the UK. Of course, the UK is made up of different countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And you can see from this slide that the vast majority of universities are in England, but there are some excellent ones in other areas of the UK as well. How many courses? A huge number, thousands and thousands. And that means that the next important stage, or the first important stage, and the most important stage, is research. Next slide, please. So, to begin your process, begin your study adventure, you need to begin by doing research. You can begin with the UCAS search tool. This is on their website, and it lets you search by entry requirements, search by university, search by course, and probably discover courses you never even imagined could exist. For example, in the UK, there are many combinations of different subjects that can be really eye-opening. You might want to do criminology and French, or textiles and astrophysics. These courses are possible in the UK because of our system of joint honours. Joint honours means that you do half of one degree and half of another, and it comes together to make 100% of a degree. You might also want a major minor, where you do more of one subject and less of another. These are possible combinations that let you really tailor your course to you. So it's really important to look in detail at the courses, look in detail at the universities. To help you do that, there are open days and virtual tours on the website that you can take advantage of. There are also some salons in France where universities present their courses. Now, obviously, at the moment, that's a bit tricky, but the British Council has found some solutions, and I'll show you those in a moment. You can also look at videos and blogs and learn from other students, and lots of those are available on the UCAS website. Next slide, please. So you can see the research tool here on your screen. It's really easy to use, and I strongly recommend that you spend a lot of time really thinking hard. Notably, in my experience, lots of French people go for a handful of UK universities. I think they're the ones that people know best, but it's not necessarily the best university for you. So really think widely, open your mind, and do a lot of research into different universities and different areas. Next slide, please. So make some careful choices. Let's look at some of the criteria that should be guiding you in this process. Next part, please. Enjoyment, career path. These are important. So my own guiding principle was that I really needed to enjoy what I was studying. Now, obviously that's personal, but I think it's a good rule of thumb that if you enjoy something, you're going to do better at it. Think about your career path as well. Now, the UK job market is a bit different to the French one in the sense that you can often try a different area that not directly related to your degree. For example, I studied English and French. I'm an English and French teacher, but I could have gone into business. I could have gone into law. I could have gone into journalism. These different options are wide open at the end of a degree in the UK because we work on the principle of transferable skills. So think about where you want to work and think about the best degree for you to achieve that. Talk to employers, talk to universities, write to their admission department, ask for statistics about where they go after they finish their degrees. The location, we talked a little about this. Do you want to be on a campus in the countryside with everything centralised? Then maybe universities like Warwick are for you. Do you want to be living in a city with one building dispersed here and there and over there? Then maybe UCL is for you. It depends very much on type of layout of university and where you want to be. There are universities that have colleges like Durham or Cambridge or Oxford, in which case you apply to a college and that they handle the admission process for you as you join the university. So research on the websites of the universities, notably, some information about what structure, what form that university takes. Next part, please. Study style. So we talked a little about the different courses, but think also about whether you're going to thrive with a very independent study style. The UK is very different in this regard to France. There are far fewer contact hours in many degrees. So, for example, with my degree in English and French, I had about 7 hours a week of contact, but I had a lot of work. I worked very hard, but it was self-study. It was reading books, it was writing essays, it was preparing presentations, and I did a lot of that at home or in the library. So it's all a bit different, and you need to think, will I thrive in that situation? Look at individual courses, ask how they're assessed, ask how many contact hours. It's questioning, questioning, questioning at this stage. Next, please. We talked about the extracurricular activities. Do you want to do rowing? In which case you need to be near a river. Do you want to go to a university with a wonderful theatre society? These could be guiding principles for you as well. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, one more last point. Of course, you need to look into the bursaries, you need to look into the scholarships and the fees for your new courses. Okay, next. You also want to choose a university that's well ranked in the different rankings that are out there. So to give you an idea of how good the university will be for you, there are lots of different criteria on these websites. You can look at Unistats or Times Higher Education rankings, but be careful. Just because a university is well ranked doesn't mean it's well ranked for your subject. So make sure you search by subject. Make sure you compare the rankings for your subject. There are other different criteria that can be taken into account. For example, the Guardian People and Planet ranking shows the sustainability of the university, what impact it has on the environment. So if that's something important for you, then that ranking is a good guide. There's also the government's Teaching Excellence Framework. That enables universities to receive a different award, gold, silver, bronze, depending on how well they are doing in terms of research and teaching. So that's a very useful guide for you as well. Next slide, please. We spoke before about the open days and the virtual tours. So you can see here, this is what the website looks like. And if we click again, you can see the different sections available to you. Now, yes, thank you. So you can see you click on exhibitions and open days and it will take you to that section. Okay, next. British Council France, of course, is here to help you. So we have a what's going on page, an events page on our website, and on there you can find useful webinars like this one. Next, please. But we also have an online fair, which will be running from the 19th of October to the 13th of November. Our objective is to help you connect with university specialists, with individual universities, and with advisors like me. So you can take an appointment to speak one-to-one with one of 40 UK universities. You can take an appointment to speak to me or one of my colleagues, and we'll give you advice about the process of applying. You can also attend online talks with universities and different specialists. They'll talk about subjects, fees, applications, visas, and much more. So to register, I've put the link up here, and I strongly encourage you to take advantage of this situation. It's a wonderful opportunity to have access to a huge number of UK universities and ask them directly the questions you might have. Thank you. Next slide. So the application itself. The application is entirely online. In most situations, you make a maximum of 5 choices. Now, if you're applying to dentistry, to veterinary science, or to medicine, that's only 4. There are some choice restrictions. For example, if you're applying to Oxford, you can't apply to Cambridge. If you're applying to Cambridge, you can't apply to Oxford. So there are a few factors to take into account, but generally it's 5 choices, and we'll come on to onto what to do with those afterwards. There's a simple application cost. It's really not very expensive, and as long as you meet the deadlines, you'll be given equal consideration. That means that the university promises to read your application like it would anyone else's. If you miss the deadlines, they might well read it, but they're not obliged to. Okay, that's a different rule. So if you want to be sure the university will read and treat your application equally, then make sure you apply by the deadlines. There's also invisibility in the application procedure. So if I apply to Coventry University and Sheffield University and Cambridge University, they don't know which universities I've applied for. They only know that I've applied to them, to the specific university. Next slide, please. So when you go on to do the application, you can see there are 6 sections. The first one are the personal details. Be really careful with this. Thousands of people make mistakes with their name, with details like their criminal record. So be really careful to read it and check it carefully. Then you have your choices, which we spoke about. You complete your education section on the form. Now, education is anything that you've got an official grade for. So if you do your bac in French in première, by the time you apply, you'll be able to put in that grade on there. Employment. Likewise, employment is only things you've been paid to do. You'll have a chance to talk about volunteering and work experience, but employment is what you've been paid to do. So for someone like me, it would be a lot longer than a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, and that's quite normal. There's no problem with that. Then your personal statement, which we'll come back to, and your referee. Now, your referee should probably be one of the teachers in your school. The reference needs to be in English, and however, the teacher can talk to all the other teachers and compile some information about you that gives a thorough overview of your skills in all the other subjects. It's better if it's a teacher because they're in a better position to have an overview of your academic achievements. Next slide, please. So when we, yeah, thank you. We'll come back to the referee in a moment. So when to apply? Applications open on the 6th of September. They close for most people on the 15th of January. So after that, you can still put in an application, but they're not obliged to treat it equally with the others. They probably will. They might anyway, but there's certainly no guarantee. Now, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, and most courses in medicine, dentistry or veterinary science, then you need to apply by the 15th of October. Now be careful, when I say apply, you do need to submit your own application, but your referee also needs to have validated it, needs to have sent their part. So you need to not do it on the last moment, at the last moment, because when you enter the referee's details, they get an email and they have to upload their reference. Once they've done it, your application is complete. Okay. Yeah, applications close on the 30th of June. So at that point, you really can't submit an application in the traditional way. However, we'll see that there are other ways in which you can apply to a UK university even after the 30th of June and right into October. Next slide, please. So let's dwell a little on the personal statement. Let's talk a little about what this short text has as a role in your application. So it's the only section that the applicant has control over. It's your only chance to market yourself. Now you only write one personal statement for all of your choices. So what does that mean? It means that if I'm applying to English at Sheffield, French at St Andrews, English and French at Nottingham, that's fine. It's quite easy for my personal statement to reflect those two subjects. However, if I'm applying for mathematics at one university, for physics at another, and for theatre at another, it becomes quite difficult to make a coherent personal statement that covers all of those possibilities. So think about what you want to do. Make choices that enable you to write a personal statement that's coherent and logical. So it's a maximum of 4,000 characters. Make sure you check on the website. It's not always the same as Microsoft Word. It's about 47 lines, and there's a minimum of 1,000 characters. However, you don't need to worry too much about the minimum because you'll have lots to say. There's no spelling or grammar check on the website. Make sure you check it carefully. Make sure you put it through a spell check on Word or some other piece of software. You can write it as one big paragraph because it all gets combined. However, it's important that it's structured. So my advice would be to write separate paragraphs, even if then they get conflated into one on the system. Next slide, please. What are they looking for? They're looking for you to show that you have independent study skills. So think about, what have you read? What have you done? How have you proved to people that in fact you have what it takes to go to the library every day, to have an inquiring mind, to do research that will show independence of thought. Self-awareness, motivation, you've got to want it. You've got to show that you want it. Show that you've got an understanding of the course. There's no point applying for biology if you don't know anything about biology. So it's important you show that. Numeracy and literacy, so make sure there are no mistakes. Research skills, show that you have researched the university, you've researched the subject, you know something about it. They're obviously checking your essay writing by this short mini essay. They want to see that you're enthusiastic, that you really want to go to their university. And they want to show that you can manage your time and that you have reflective thinking skills, that you're aware of where you are going and that you're aware of the challenges and the exciting things that will come up on that journey. Next slide, please. So here are our top tips. Make sure you've got a strong opening paragraph. Be careful. If you say, I've always wanted to be a vet, it's not true. You were a child. It's a cliche. Avoid that kind of cliche. Interest people. Lots of people ask me if they can write quotes in their opening paragraph. There's no rule against it. And if you can show why you're doing it, maybe. But be aware of the fact that you don't have very many words to really sell yourself. So make sure your voice is what they hear. They don't need to hear Socrates. So think carefully about and be discerning with any quotes you choose to use. Research the courses. Know why you're applying, where you're applying, what it's like. As a general rule, make it about 80% academic and 20% extracurricular. That's your chance to talk about things like volunteering, to talk about different experiences that have shaped who you are today, travel, your knowledge of the UK and all of that. But yeah, the 80% academic, talk about things like the projects you've done at school, the extra reading you've done, why you're interested in that subject, what it is about that subject that appeals to you. But be honest. There's no point writing things that are not true. In some universities, you'll have interviews, so it's best not to try your luck with anything that's too exaggerated or untrue. Now, you can't write this in a day. On our courses at the British Council, we help people by giving them advice on personal statements, but this process goes on for a month and a half sometimes. It's slow and it requires you to write, to think, to look at it again another day, to show it to somebody and ask them, is this me? Have I properly shown a good picture of myself, or do you not recognize me? You want to be presenting a good picture of yourself. So make sure it really reflects who you are. Now, it's really important to notice that there's no perfect personal statement. The clue is in the word personal. You can look online and you'll see lots of examples, but they're not the right example for you. I've spoken to many recruitment officers in my life, and those recruitment officers know if you didn't write it. They know if it's something that's been lightly modified from the internet, or if a counsellor wrote it for you, or an agent. So my strong advice is, yes, get somebody to check the English, make sure it's okay, but don't change it all to reflect what an adult or a friend or a counsellor or the internet suggests you should have in your personal statement. What it should be is personal to you. Next slide, please. So that's the personal statement, but the next key point I'd like us to look at is the reference. So it's an essential part of the application. As we said, it should be one of your teachers, and it must discuss your academic performance. So some of my students will ask me, can you be my referee? And I can't, not very easily, because I don't know, yes, if they're applying for English, I can talk about English, but I can't talk about chemistry. So it should be a teacher giving an overview of the relevant subjects and overall achievement. Make sure you give your personal statement to the referee. It's actually really hard writing a good reference. So you need to give them all the information that you can to help make sure they know where you're going and how they can help you get there. Now, we come to the slightly tricky part. The reference must include a predicted grade for the overall baccalaureate. Now, that's something that doesn't really exist in France. But in the UK, it's very it's normal. All students will receive a predicted grade. Now, that grade is what will really determine if you're able to apply to a certain university and if you're accepted. So it's really, really important. So talk to your teacher. Make sure that they're not being over generous, but they're not being unreasonably harsh either. Explain to them the importance of this grade. It's also a chance for you to talk about any anomalies in your, for the referee to talk about any anomalies in your studies. So if people often ask me, my school marks particularly harshly. So in that case, the referee can talk about that and so on. It needs to be in English. So make sure, although they're not being judged on their English, it must be easy to read. So they can work together with an English teacher, for example. Okay, next slide, please. Sometimes you need to do extra exams, and those can be organised usually in Paris, or in France, I should say. So you need to investigate that. Once you've submitted your application, the university will get back to you and ask you to complete the different exams. Sometimes you have interviews, notably for Durham, Oxford, Cambridge, but some others as well. Those interviews are an opportunity for them to really see if you fit with the college or the university you've applied to. So we can talk more about preparing that by reading the different blog posts that are on the British Council website. Next slide, please. And of course, often you'll need to do some kind of test or exam to prove your English level. Not always. Sometimes the university will make an offer where they accept that your baccalaureate was very good. Sometimes if you've done an international baccalaureate, an IGCSE, so these qualifications can count. Likewise, if you've done a CAE or a CPE exam, an advanced English or proficiency exam with Cambridge, that can sometimes count. But often, very often, the university will make you an offer which includes getting a certain score on the baccalaureate, but also a certain score on IELTS. IELTS is the International English Language Testing System, and it's run by the University of Cambridge, the British Council and an Australian university together. Once you do the test, which you can do with us in Paris or elsewhere in France, it's valid for 2 years. It should be valid when you arrive at the university, so make sure you time it carefully. You get a score from 1 to 9, and this is a photograph of your English level. It's not the test, it's not the British Council that's saying this is pass or this is fail. The university will say you need to get 6, 7 on an overall score, and therefore you need to be working on your English to make sure you get that score. They might also ask for a specific skill in writing, so be careful, look carefully at what they're asking and work hard to get that. We run we run courses during the holidays on preparing students for the IELTS test, and we also incorporate it into our university preparation courses. Now, this test, although it's a photograph of your English level, does require you to have some exam technique, to be familiar with the tricks of the test, to make sure that you know what is expected of you, just like any test. So I strongly recommend that if you do need to do it, you buy a book, you look on the internet, you do some research into what's expected of you in each part of the test. Or even better, you do a thorough training course with us in France. You can book your tests online on the British Council website. Okay, next slide, please. So, application advice. As I said before, our blog has lots and lots of articles on it, which are an opportunity for you to read all about different elements of applying, including the personal statement. There are some wonderful articles on there written by advisors and recruitment specialists. Next slide, please. So, you've done your application, you've submitted it before the deadline, and this is what happens next. You can track your application. You can track it using what's called Track. It's a part of the UCAS website. It will tell you what's happening with your application at all stages of the process. So you can see whether you've been made offers, and you can reply to your offers. So as a result, it's really actually very easy to follow through the process and see clearly where you are and what you need to do by when. So as soon as you create your space on the website, you'll have access to this and be able to submit your application and follow it. Next slide, please. It looks a bit like this, to give you an idea. Next slide, please. So you've submitted your application. What happens next? The universities will get back to you. They will get back to you, they have to. But they can give 3 answers. They can say that you are unsuccessful and that they're not going to give you a place. They can say that you are successful as long as you get 13 on the baccalaureate, 12 in English, an IELTS score of 6. It depends. That's known as a conditional offer. But they might make you an unconditional offer. An unconditional offer means that whatever grade you get, they really, really want you. And you'll be able to go to that university even if you were to fail all your subjects. Now, obviously, the most common of these is the conditional offer. An unconditional offer is often made to people like me, I guess, who have already done their qualifications and have the paper already. So there's no point making me a conditional offer because I've got the certificate. I can just show it to them. So when you get all your decisions, all your offers, I should say, you can choose 2 offers. One of them is a firm choice and one is an insurance choice, if you want to. So the firm choice is the one that you will go to if you get the grades they're asking for. If you don't, you'll telephone them and check if you can still go. They might say yes, often they do. But if they don't, you've made an insurance choice, probably one that was asking for lower grades. And as a result, you'll be able to go to this insurance choice and they will accept you as long as you got the grades they asked for. As soon as you've made those choices, you enter them on track and all the other offers are declined. That's the end for them. You don't have to reply until you've got all the offers on the table. So when all the offers are on the table, you can make your choices and make them knowing what was possible. Track will show you the reply date you need to reply by once all the offers have been given to you. Next slide. Now, let's say that you don't get the grades. It's not the end of the world. Many people get into university every year in the UK through clearing, which begins in early July and continues all the way up into October. So if you apply after the 30th of June, or if you receive no offers, or if you decline all your offers, you change your mind, or you didn't get the grade, then you use this part of the website to ask universities, can I come anyway? And this huge number of people get accepted every year through this process of clearing. You also have a couple more options. Let's imagine that you used all 5 choices, but nobody made you an offer, or you declined all the offers, you didn't want them. You can add extra choices one at a time on track. So for example, I might write to one university and say, hello, this is me, here's my personal statement, would you like me? And if they say no, then I can write to a different one. And if they say no, I can write to a different one. It's a longer process, but it's a good way of getting around that situation. There's also one other situation, a more positive one, where you get your place with your firm choice, but you did better than you expected. That enables you on track to ask other universities who would have asked for higher grades if you can go to that university. So it's quite rare, but it's nice to know it's there, just in case there's any pleasant surprises and you get really good grades you didn't expect. Next slide, please. So that kind of resumes what students can do and should do to go about their university application. How can parents help? There's a section on the UCAS website with lots of extra resources for you as parents. You can use that to support your children and make sure that you're helping them in what really is a huge decision. You can offer to attend open days or sit in on online open days. You can make sure that you don't book family holidays in the run up to the deadlines. You can really make sure and double check everything that's sent in. An extra pair of eyes is very welcome. And you might well want to talk to the school, especially in France, about the reference and the predicted grade. Now that really is good advice, because as I say, many teachers have never done this and they need you to explain and talk it through with them. And that's quite a lot to ask of a student. Next slide, please. As I said before, here's the phone number for UCAS, and you can ring them up anytime in those working hours, and they're super helpful. They'll give you the answer to any question you might have. Next slide. This is our website, StudyUK, which is a fantastic resource of the most up-to-date information. What I'm saying today may not be valid in a month or 2 months' time, but this website will always be valid and up to date. So it's a real reference point for you in this process. Thank you. Next slide. Here are some useful websites, and we'll send you the PowerPoint so that you can look at them in your own time. And next slide, please. And of course, the section we have at the British Council is called Preparation for University Studies in English, not just in the UK, but in the US, Canada, Australia, or in France. If you're going to study a subject such as engineering or hotellerie, you may well end up in a cursus which is taught in English, and our section will help prepare you for that. If you'd like to know more, just go onto our website and book a placement test, and from there we can orientate you towards the right course. Next slide, please. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. We've got some time for questions, so if you have any questions, enter them into the chat. Nishma, are you there?
I am. Hello. Yes, we do have quite a few questions actually. So I'm just going to go through them. So the first question was, it was much cheaper in Scotland. Is it still the case?
No, unfortunately it's not. It was much cheaper for European citizens to go and study in Scotland. In fact, it was free in terms of student fees, but that's changed. So you need to look at each individual university individually and check what the fee for that subject in that university is.
Okay, and the second question was, can we apply to more than one course per university?
Yes, you can. You can apply to, for example, I think I applied to English and English and French in Leeds University, and you can still do that today.
Okay, perfect. So I keep muting myself. There's a lot of background noise. Sorry about that. Okay, so are there any specific restrictions for students under 18 regarding university or jobs or training?
That's an excellent question. I think the best thing to do in that situation is to contact the university directly and ask them if it's a problem if you'll be under 18 when you come to the university. I don't think there's a policy on it on a UK level, but there is probably a policy within the university. It would also be worth looking at the visa information website, where there'll be information about whether you can apply for the visa, at what age, and so on. So that's on this PowerPoint, and you'll be able to see it on the visa page.
Perfect. Okay, so in order to study business, which subject should I keep in my last year of high school, economics or maths? Which is the most important?
That's a really good question. I think that within the UK system, there's quite an open mind to the subjects that you've studied. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you need to study biology, I would imagine. But if you want to be a journalist, or if you want to be, work in business, they're going to look at the skills you've accrued, not at the subject title as such. That said, the best person to answer that question would be if you contacted a university you're interested in. On the web page, you'll find their admissions department, and just ask them that question. And it's a really interesting one because I think the answer will probably be do well. But it would be sensible just to double check.
Okay. All right, so another question. When do we have to pay the fees if accepted in a university? Is it possible to wait for all answers before confirming one specific admission?
So there's two questions there, I think.
Yes.
So yes, you automatically wait for all the answers, and then you're given a date in track, and you have to apply by that date. But that date, until you've got all the offers, and until that deadline, all the universities have to wait for you to reply. They can't change their mind. And the other question about fees, you normally pay the fees towards the beginning of the academic year, but it would be broken down into installments probably over the year.
Okay, the next question, which Phil, thank you, Phil, kindly replied yes, but can you have the referee statement translated if the referee is French? I'm assuming the person Fiona is asking whether they can translate it here in France, as opposed to whether the university would translate it.
The university won't translate it. You can have it translated, but it would need to be by a certified translator, so it would need to be assermenté in France. You could, however, potentially have it translated within the school by an English teacher or somebody, and then it would obviously be signed by the school in the same way and validated by the school in the same way. Okay.
Are the chances the same? So are the chances are the chances the same whether you submit your application in October or January?
That's a good question. Yes, in theory, they're the same. You might start getting offers earlier if you submit it earlier. But yes, the idea is that you will be given equal consideration until the 15th of January. That said, I should also point out that you're in a really good position at the moment. Demographically, there are not that many 18-year-olds in the UK compared to when I went to university. As a result, the universities are quite generous. They need you and they want you. So yeah, they'll give you equal consideration, and quite often they'll be quite generous at the moment.
Okay, here's another question. Does it help to go to a summer school in a university in order to join that or be accepted by that university?
It helps in the sense that something to write about in your personal statement. It's kind of the perfect academic bit to add to your personal statement. And if you are interested in that university specifically, then yes, it's helpful. But it's not a guarantee by any means. And remember, when you apply, you're probably applying to 5 universities. So name checking one doesn't necessarily mean that you will automatically get that one.
Okay, great. A couple more. So is IGCSE requested by universities?
No, it's not requested as a prerequisite. However, it can sometimes be a dispensation from doing an IELTS test, for example. Sometimes. It depends on the individual department in the individual university.
Okay, I think you covered this in your presentation, but just in case, do you receive all the answers at the same time?
No, you don't. In fact, sometimes it can be over a period of months. But as I said, when you get all the answers, when you've got all the answers, the kind of clock starts ticking and you have a couple of weeks to make your decision. Until then, they can't change their mind, even if they have to wait 2 months after they sent you an offer.
Okay, how to choose a university teaching HR?
Oh, that's a really good question. So you would go onto the UCAS website. You would start looking for human resource subjects. There may well be a subject called human resources. If there isn't, I would contact an employer, and I would maybe contact it depends where you want to work in HR, I guess, in France or in the UK or elsewhere. But I would do research, contacting employers, etc., and ask them what qualifications they require in order to employ you. I would imagine there's probably some professional qualifications you might need to do afterwards as well.
Okay. And one last question. So applying for 2 courses in one, does applying for 2 courses in one university count as 1 choice or 2 choices?
2 choices. Good try.
Yes, and that's everything. So unless
Wonderful.
we have any other questions, last minute questions coming in, we've covered them all. Thanks, George.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Nishma. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to kind of stress that the UK really is a wonderful destination for studying at higher education level, and that hasn't changed. So I strongly encourage you to take advantage of our online fair, take advantage of all the blogs and all the opportunities you have to really enter into contact with universities, and just really make good choices so that when you come to enter your application, you're confident you've made the right choices for you.
George, sorry, I do have one more that's just come in. Do UK universities prefer an IB or OIB?
Again, it doesn't make a difference from the point of view of the academic baccalaureate side of it, but it may well be that one would dispense you from an English test in a certain university. The universities are really good. The admissions departments know what an OIB is. They know what an IB is. They know what an IGCSE is. It's kind of their specialism. So as a result, you'll have to wait really until you get your offer from the university to see if what they've taken into account. And then at that point, if needs be, you can book an IELTS test.
Great, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure and best of luck. Thank you.